Imagine walking down the street and suddenly the ground begins to tremble. At first you think it's a passing truck, but then a huge shadow crawls across the sidewalk. You look closer, and what you see freezes your blood. It isn't a dog, it isn't a cat. It's an ant. An ant the size of a German shepherd. Its jaws snap with the force of steel crushers. Its armored body glistens under the sunlight, and its many legs move in perfect coordination as it crawls closer, before you can even breathe. More of them appear, dozens, hundreds, a swarm pouring from the ground. What if ants grew the size of dogs right now? Ants are tiny creatures we barely notice, but they are everywhere. Scientists estimate there are over 20 quadrillion ants alive today. That's more ants than all the stars in our galaxy, multiplied by millions for every single human. There are millions of ants. We think of them as harmless, but only because of their size. If that size suddenly multiplied 1,000 times, they would become monsters we could never ignore. Ants are already superpowered in miniature form. A normal ant can lift 50 times its own weight. Imagine scaling that up to dog size. They could toss cars aside, flip over trucks, and smash through brick walls like cardboard. Their jaws, called mandibles, could slice through metal rods, wood, or even steel pipes with terrifying ease. And their exoskeleton. The hard outer shell protecting them would be thick enough to deflect bullets or shatter knives. One ant at that size would already be terrifying, but ants are never alone. Ants are civilizations in themselves. Every colony has soldiers, workers, farmers, and even medics that carry injured ants back to safety. They operate like highly disciplined armies with perfect teamwork. At dog size, a single colony would rival the population of a human city. A single queen could produce thousands of eggs, and those eggs would grow into massive soldiers that never stop working. Within weeks, their colonies would expand beyond control, spreading across neighborhoods, highways, and entire cities. Now imagine them in action. Thousands of dog-sized ants swarming across highways, climbing skyscrapers, tunneling under buildings, tearing apart everything in their path. Roads would collapse as underground tunnels gave way. Entire suburbs would sink into the earth. Skyscrapers would shake as swarms of ants crawled up their walls, breaking windows and flooding hallways. Humans would stand no chance in open confrontation. Could we fight back at first? Perhaps soldiers with rifles, heavy weapons, and explosives could slow them down. But ants are relentless bullets, might not even pierce their thick armor. A few might fall to flamethrowers or bombs. But the queens would continue producing replacements faster than humans could destroy them. Unlike other animals, ants do not give up. They adapt, they strategize, and they attack again in greater numbers. Cities would quickly become uninhabitable. Survivors would flee into mountains, remote islands, or underground bunkers, hoping the ants couldn't follow. But ants are spreaders by nature. They travel on ships through deserts, across rivers. No barrier is too great for them. Once they spread out of control, there would be no escape, and the real terror wouldn't just be their strength. It would be their hunger ants. Eat constantly, stripping forests, farms, and anything edible. They can find a swarm of giant ants could devour a cornfield in minutes, drag livestock into tunnels, and even overwhelm humans as prey. Imagine waking up at night to the sound of clicking mandibles in your home, only to find a wall broken down by massive ants carrying away food, furniture, even people. The balance of Earth would collapse, crops would vanish, wildlife would disappear, livestock would be slaughtered with no food supply left. Human civilization would crumble, governments would try to launch full-scale wars, dropping bombs, chemicals, or even nuclear weapons to stop the spread. But ants don't build cities above ground. Their queens hide deep beneath the earth, protected by layers of soil. And soldiers, even massive bombs, might only destroy part of the colony, while the rest continues to grow. And ants do something that makes them even more unstoppable: cooperation. Unlike most predators, ants work as one. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation for the good of the colony. They communicate instantly, using pheromones, invisible chemical signals that allow them to move with perfect coordination. Imagine a battlefield where every soldier in the ant army knows exactly what the others are doing. No hesitation, no confusion, no retreat, just a perfect war machine. Now here's the scariest part. Even if humans somehow built walls, bunkers, or strongholds, ants would eventually find a way in. They can dig through soil sand and even soft rock. They can climb vertical walls. They can squeeze through the tiniest openings. A human city hiding behind concrete barriers wouldn't last long. One crack in the foundation and the swarm would pour through in a matter of months. Ants the size of dogs could dominate the planet, not just in numbers, but in territory. Forests would be hollowed out by their tunnels. Deserts would crawl with colonies. Farmlands would vanish under endless swarms. Even oceans wouldn't stop them. Rafts of ants have been seen floating across rivers, surviving floods at dog size. They could create floating islands of living ants crossing entire seas. Human civilization as we know it would likely collapse. We would be forced to live in fortified floating cities on isolated islands or deep underwater to survive. The world's governments might attempt to unite in one last desperate attempt to wipe them out, but against creatures that never sleep, never stop reproducing, and never retreat. Even humanity's greatest weapons may fail. So the next time you see a tiny ant crawling across your kitchen counter, remember what it truly represents. A superorganism, a creature built for survival. Teamwork and conquest shrunk down. They are harmless, but if they ever grew the size of dogs, they would not just compete with us. They would replace us. Earth would belong to the ants.